Thank you so much, Jessica. It is wonderful to be with you tonight. I'm Dan Brown. I'm Jessica's colleague in the ESP quality department at NEA headquarters. I love seeing the intros of who's in the chat. Please keep that coming. Um, Love seeing lots of New Jersey represented. I'm a product of the New Jersey Public Schools, and my mom was a 34-year employee of Cherry Hill Public Schools in South Jersey and JEA and NEA member. Awesome to see everyone. This session is going to be really fun, I think, because we're going to be hearing from exemplary NEA members about person-to-person connections, and that's really at the core of education, of the union, of what we do. So we're going to be hearing with two panels. Kim L. Henry from Minneapolis, Minnesota is on, a paraeducator and Minnesota State ESP of the Year. We've got Martin Jenkins, who has extensive experience in Phoenix Union High School District in Phoenix, Arizona, as a community liaison, as a administrative specialist, and as a returning champion presenter at the ESP conference. And we also have Judith Lee in our first panel, who is an ESP of the Year from the great state of Alabama, and is in charge of the Technical Learning Center at Northeast Alabama Community College. So we'll be hearing all about family and community engagement from the point of view of these incredible ESPs. And then I'm going to hand it off to my colleague, Angelia Ebner, who's going to go deep with two phenomenal educators, Catherine Gilmore and Sherry Ann Johnson, who are colleagues at one school, Gibsonton Elementary School in Hillsborough County, Florida, home of Tampa, to talk about family and community engagement from the NEA Community Schools point of view. That's gone deep into that program. So please use the Q&A function generously. Put your ideas in there. We're going to spend time at the end of this session responding, but also we want this to be interactive. Use the chat. Okay, now to kick us off, let's go on to the next slide real quick. This won't be on the screen for long, but it is a QR code. Most importantly, the link, thanks, Gloria. Yes, keep the intros coming in the chat if you haven't yet introduced yourself. Wonderful to see everyone share your name, where you're from, your role. But you can point your phone at this QR code. Also, I just put in the chat the link to it. So when we move off of this slide, you can still click that link. There are two questions that it'll take 30 seconds or less to sort of get your pulse on where you're at with family and community engagement, this issue. It's a self-selected group, of course. You came here this evening for this webinar. We're really interested to get your thoughts on these two questions, and I'll share the data before the end of this webinar. So you can follow that, that link or that QR code to those two questions. Great. So we can move on to the next slide here. And yeah, this session certainly aligns with NEA frameworks. We're going to be talking family and community engagement, that human connection, in the leadership development competencies, and I dropped a link to those in the chat. Social and emotional intelligence is sort of at the core, and that's really at the core of family and community engagement, what we're going to talk about tonight. And also, certainly, this aligns with our goals around developing competencies around communication. Communication is also one of the universal standards. It's the first standard of the ESP professional growth continuum, outlining what ESPs need to know and be able to do across the whole career journey. So communication and professionalism are two standards that we're going to go deep into tonight. And I'm going to aspire that that's about the most that I'm going to say, because we can, oh, you know what? Sorry, one more slide. Let's sort of prime the pump for this discussion, what we're going to hear. This is just food for thought for everyone in this Zoom room. As you listen in this first panel to Martin, to Kamel, to Judith, I encourage you, and to, you can include in the chat your reactions and put in the Q&A your questions. As you hear this, as you process, what are you hearing that you might be able to use, transform in some way, and apply? Could be you can interpret that very broadly. We all have different contexts, but there's a lot we can learn and apply when we think about family and community engagement. And then also not just what are you learning, but what do you want to know more about? What are you curious about? There's that second bullet. So posting in the chat, Q&A about what you want to know more about. And then specifically, if you have ideas for resources to share or resources that you would want, let us know that also. That really helps. Certainly the ESP quality department is listening, and being able to share and have this community of sharing of professional knowledge is really, really wonderful. So with that, we can take the slides away. We can bring on our ESP leaders, and let's go first to Martin, and then we'll go to Judith and Camille. Can you just share with us some success stories you've had related to family and community engagement? You were a community liaison for years. You've worked a variety of roles. So eager to hear from you, Martin, first about your success stories.
Thank you for that, Dan. Afternoon, everyone, or evening, I guess, depending where you're at. Martin Jenkins. I'd like to share a story kind of about my first position in the district. I was a community liaison. To me, often like this situation or this experience is kind of the reason I find myself still in education today. I didn't enjoy my education experience as a youth, and so I never thought I'd be back in school, but here I am 5 years later, loving what I do and, continuing on this path. So as a community liaison in my district, we work mostly with, based on referrals for students in need. Sometimes it's just a kid falls in a puddle of water and they have some dirty pants, shirt, shorts, whatever the case is. Other times kids are maybe a little funky, think they need some hygiene products. Sometimes there'll be attendance issues, really any of the cases that outside the classroom needs, they're referred to us. So I had a student who was referred to me because she was an exceptional student, but she just had struggles with attendance. And then even during her class time, she wasn't very engaging. They noticed, she'd been labeled as temperamental or kind of a moody student. And so they referred her to me for the attendance issue, and then two, just to see whatever else I could find out with her. In connecting with her and finding, initially it was, she shared that, she's not sleeping well because she's going to work and she's having to work late nights and, just trying to make sure she has money for the month. And so leads me to kind of finding out, well, what do you need the money for? What are those supports like? You're a high school student, what money do you need? What bills do you have? Or, what things are you required to pay? She kind of shares like a couple things here and there. Mostly she tries to play it off as kind of just medical, I just go to see my doctor here and there for things like that. But it didn't seem like she really wanted to get to either the cause or even, not to say the student was lying, but it felt like she was telling me what I wanted to hear, anything to kind of get the conversation to end. So we leave it at that. We tell them we'll reconnect next week, see if anything changes, and if we can't change that attendance, we'll revisit and see what we can do to get you back in class in the campus. We connect again, students same issues, and kind of discussing with her more and more. And then allowing her, one of the counselors came in and supported as well. We discussed the student, kind of found that she wasn't your typical homeless. She was living in a home, paying for the home, paying rent, paying electrical, kind of all of those utilities. As a 17-year-old senior in high school, with a younger sibling living with her, and mom was nowhere to be found. Initially, she just said, mom was gone for the weekend. It was just a day, she'd be back. She was just going out of town with her boyfriend. The weekend turned 2 weeks, months, and mom just nowhere to be found, nowhere to be heard from. We don't know. I never even, to this day, I've never spoken with her mother. I don't know her mother. I don't know what the woman looks like, or couldn't tell you what her voice sounds like. But with this student, in finding that she was kind of supporting herself and her younger sibling, and then her brother her sister and her sister's fiance would on and off stay with them as well, as in, given that her sister's 5 years older than her, it was a very eye-opening experience. And then so to kind of work with this student, it was, for one, we worked with her to try to find different resources to see, what her initial needs were. Like, obviously she's paying, but like a student should not be paying for housing, paying for utilities, groceries, food. Like, their focus is education. And so kind of working with her to find, we were able to find her house and we were able to find her stable employment. And then even now, like she's going to school and has a degree, or she's going to school for her degree. And just seeing her on the town now, it just this it brings joy to my heart to see her doing so well. Initially she was labeled as that, kind of temperamental, moody, but like the kid was at home. She was, going home, getting ready, getting her uniform, or sometimes leaving school early to get her uniform, go to work, then going home, feeding her younger siblings. She make sure the bills are paid, worried about, trying to budget those things out. Like as an adult now, I struggle with these things. And so to have a student doing that in her day job, which is school, and so, being able to get her in some stable housing and stable employment and support with her, and just seeing the student that she really was. I mean, after we were able to kind of get those things, she lit up. Like she was, very engaged in the classroom again. She's ready to answer. She was on time. She was attending. She was supporting other students. Even in her senior year, we have an internship program, and so she was interning and also mentoring younger students, and and sharing them and kind of helping them on their career paths. And so just kind of being able to get that student back engaged in the campus was just, it warmed my heart. I was happy to see it. Like, I feel like too often we write students off for, we define engagement as something very specific, but engagement, we can engage students in a lot of different ways. And I think finding those ways to connect with them and, get them the supports they need, like makes it all the difference for them.
Thanks. I put a note in the chat, but that's a fabulous way to kick us off here, Martin. Thank you for that. And let's go to Judith to share your success story.
So when I started thinking about it, as Dan said, I manage a technology center, and we have a large population of adult learners at a community college. So, a lot of single parents, a lot of people trying to go to school part-time, full-time, work part-time, full-time. So I had a young mother come in to take a test with a baby, and the baby was in the little in its little carriage. It was asleep, and I could tell that she was very nervous about having to have the baby there. There's a big picture window between my office and the lab, so I can always see what's going on in the lab. And I could tell she just kept looking at the baby, looking at the baby. Well, the baby woke up and, started crying. And so this sense of fear just came over her and panic. And so I just dropped what I was doing, went in there, got the baby. And I said, do you care if I take him outside? It was a very pretty day. He was probably about 5 months old. And she was like, no. So I took him outside, walked him around, enjoyed my time as a grandmother with that baby. And tried to give her plenty of time, went back in the lab. She had finished the test. And, I think sometimes we don't think about, we just react, like Martin said, because that's what we're supposed to do. But later she came back to me to let me know. She said, you'll just never know what that meant to me. She said, I was just in pure panic. And she took her test, made well on her test. And I thought, I didn't think anything about it at the moment, because I just thought, well, that's just what we do. That's just who we are. And then just another quick story. I had a work study several years ago that was brought here with her 5 siblings at a young age. And then her mother became sick and wanted to go back to Guatemala. Her mother and dad left when she was 17, left her here with her 4 siblings. We used to be the sock capital of the world. They all lied about their ages, worked in the sock mills, saved money, paid 2 attorneys $20,000 at 2 separate times to help them become permanent residents. And both attorneys took their monies. And we have, our community college has a diversity conference every year. And one year at the diversity conference, I made contact with an organization that I felt could help her. And so I came back, shared that information with her, and they assisted her at no charge. And now she is a traveling nurse. She just got back from Hawaii. All 3 of her kids have come through my lab, and I've been at the college 21 years. All 3 of her kids have come through my lab and have college degrees. And so it's like Martin said, it's just good to see her and the success that she's had, and to know that, she crossed my path.
That is so fabulous, Judith. Thank you for that. And I'm already feeling a real theme here also about um, really, really putting in work, taking care, and acting with love towards students, and especially recognizing when students who may be, extra vulnerable really need that personal support, that extra support, and providing that makes such a difference. Just fabulous, fabulous stuff to hear about. So let's keep it going to you, Camille.
Hello, everyone. Um, I was gonna do a couple of short stories. So I think I'll stick with that. One is for a young lady. Well, when school first started, we were out at buses and we had a little 5-year-old come across the street, and people, like, the parents are like, there was parents out helping on the buses at the time. We're in middle school. And they were like, we don't know what to do. And so everybody's like, they brought her over to me. And so, like, even the staff at the building, they brought her over to me. And I'm like, who is this little person? And so, like, I'm like checking in with the little person and everything. And I just so happened to look on her backpack. And I'm like, if they're usually kindergartners have, like, the tags on their backpacks on their clothes. And everybody's like standing around looking at me like in disbelief. And like even the kids are like, who would think of that? I'm like, where have you all been? Like, check their clothes, like check their backpack, right? So I checked her backpack and I was like, there was her information. And so when I'm looking at the phone number, I'm like, why do I know this number? And then I asked her name. She knew her name. And then I'm like, is this your phone number? Is your mom? And then it's like everybody's amazed because she knows all of her information. And because we have middle schoolers that don't know their information sometimes, right? So it was amazing that we had this 5-year-old that knew all of her information. And when I called the number and I spoke to the mom, I knew exactly who she was, and I knew who her son was because her son went to our school. And so I was like, I know who you are. I know who your son is. I'm on my way. I'll come bring her. I'll just drop her off. And I said, so if you let me get these buses going, once everybody leaves, I'll bring her. Is that okay? She said yes. And she was like so stressed out because, of course, you have your 5-year-old that's missing, that this bus driver has just dropped off at a bus stop that was not hers. But it was just amazing that I knew who her older child was because of building the relationship with that family. So it's nice to, when you're building relationships, how important that is. You all will probably hear me say it a lot because it's very important to build relationships. And another short story is a young lady that we had, that the kids would really like kind of bully her, antagonize her, like harass her because of her clothing. And her clothing was kind of revealing. And I built a relationship with her and was trying to figure out and explain, like, it can be hard when you come to school with revealing clothes and middle schoolers. So, but you have a right to be you and to dress how you want to dress, but with the understanding that because this is middle school and you have all of these hormones and all of this different stuff going on all at once, and people don't know your reality and why, this is the things that you will have to deal with, and it's not going to end here. You are going to have some of this for the rest of your life. So saying that to her and talking to her, I called her family and I asked, was it okay that I bring her to the store? And so we left the school. I let everybody know we're leaving and we'll be back. But I didn't say why. And I have her mom's permission. So we'll be back. I took her to Target and I said, pick out a couple of outfits and you wear those outfits. She was so appreciative and things changed for her when she was in the school. And she was so thankful, and so was her mom. And then we were also able to get them the help that they needed to get her some different type of clothing so she would not continue to be harassed and picked on by students because of her clothing. And so I just like that I was able to build that relationship with them, her and her mom, and see her succeed for the rest of the school year and her come back later and thank me and some of the other staff in the building for helping her to get to where she is.
That is so powerful. Thank you, Kamel. And yeah, these efforts, these special efforts, they last. The impact lasts a lifetime. I mean, she'll never forget that. And then she came back and expressed to you the impact that made. That's amazing. Let's go around again, pretty quickly. And you're getting some love in the chat, Kamel. Although I think that statement could, I think everyone here, just being in community with so many incredible educators and ESPs. I recognize a number of names from the attendee list. We're from all over the country. This is really, really special. This is a blessing. And in that spirit of sharing and celebrating, let's go around pretty quickly and share. You could take this question as, what do you wish you knew when you started your career that you now know about this whole territory of the relationships with family and community and engaging with family and communities related to work? Or just what advice do you have for other ESPs, especially early career ESPs, around this piece? So we'll go to you first, Martin.
Yeah. It sounds really simple, but I mean, like, I feel like I have to live by this now. And it's just being like true to your word. I feel like there's a lot of lack of trust already in the school system. I mean, it's not like we saw growing up in movies where, drop the kids off corner or the kids walking to school and you just trust whoever's there. Like, they question everything now. And so, like, if you can't be true to your word, or you can't follow up and, and if you offer support, or if you ensure something, like, you have to follow through with that. That goes a long way, whether it be something really small, like giving a follow-up phone call, or, giving those supports they need. But you just have to be, true to your word. And yeah, I think that's it for me.
I think following along kind of with what Martin said is that what we say and do matters. And I guess I didn't realize that. I've been in the system for 22 years. I didn't realize that so much early on. But then, like, I go back to the story about the young mother that I was able to, eventually, I eventually was able to write her a letter of recommendation to obtain her U.S. citizenship. And then I was able to see all three of her children come through. And when they came to college, she said, you find Miss Lee, because she'll help you. If you need anything, you find Miss Lee. And I have an opportunity to employ some student workers in the lab if they qualify for any kind of financial aid. And so I've been able to employ, generations of families, and right now I have, when I interview for those jobs, I try to pick, we talk a lot in my department about the beautiful people, and like, when you're at a college, the beautiful people are on the billboards, the beautiful people are on the videos, they say, but my lab, we say we're the island of misfits. I hire that mother that her husband committed suicide 3 years ago, and she's got an 11-year-old and a 12-year-old, or that lady that got off drugs and decided to get a college degree. That's who I try to employ as my work studies, because I think I can make a difference in their lives.
That's wonderful. Let's keep going around the horn to you, Kamel.
Okay. For me, something that I've learned that's very important is when you're talking with students and families, do not assume that it's mom and dad. And because some people's moms and fathers have passed away, or they are not in their lives, and it is a guardian taking care of them. So being mindful of asking about guardians and not mom and dad right away, because you don't know what that can spark up. Making sure that you are listening to families and what they need, and not listening to talk, but listening to understand what it is that they need. And if they need anything, because sometimes they don't want you to help them out because you're hearing all of these things. So just being mindful of what it is that they need at that time, and if you should just be listening. And the importance of building relationships. Again, you all are going to hear me say it a lot because it is so important, because sometimes people are not willing to build relationships or are in fear of building relationships. So you can't be in fear of building a relationship with any family, no matter what nationality they are. So building relationships and being aware of that. It's, just assuring that you're also meeting students where they are. So the importance of that and being aware of that, because sometimes you have to give students grace and understanding where they're at. That's very important.
Thank you so much, Kamel.
Mhm.
And there's so much in there, but just to specifically zoom in on that piece about the language, don't assume with your language. I think that's really, really a valuable piece of advice that everyone can sort of have in the front of their mind to take and use also. So you use the term guardians?
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
Great. And Martin and Judith, you start us off there talking about just like being real, being truthful, being honest, and that was echoed in the comments here. I see Bonnie put, "Don't promise things to students if you can't keep your promises to them. My students look up to me," with the implication being that's a really precious thing, and they won't look up to you if you don't keep that word at all times. You got to be consistent. And Andy, no worries about the typo, Andy. Really appreciate what you put in here. When building relationships, always be your authentic self. Yep, hitting that point about being real. Do not try to be what you are not, or be something you think they'll like or relate to better. They will see through it, and you will do more harm to building that relationship than good. Yeah. I'm seeing Gloria's note about something being wrong with the sound. Other folks, if this is the case for you, please note it in the chat. Our amazing panelists here, Martin, Kamel, and Judith, are going to stick around to the end. There will be an opportunity to ask more questions. And I'll share before tossing it over to Angelia to go deep on NEA's work in community schools, which really, really is learning a lot about family and community engagement. The poll responses, we had 28 people write in, and over 89% agree or strongly agree that family and community engagement is an important part of your job for the folks on the line. 35% strongly agree they feel confident in their skills and knowledge related to family and community engagement. 43% agree. So about 89% agree that it's an important part of the job. About 77% agree that they're confident in their skills. So, I mean, it's just interesting data that this is an area that's very important. It's very present in our lives, and we can all, constantly be learning and growing about how to connect and deepen those incredibly valuable relationships. So with that, Jessica, we could bring the slides back, and Angelia will get us into what things that NEA is learning about that very, very topic.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Dan. Really excited to be with you all tonight. Also coming to you from Phoenix. So hey, Martin, not so far away. Excited to be here with you all. Really excited to introduce Catherine and Sherry-Ann here in just a moment. So really quickly, Dan, should I share my slides or have the slides been embedded in the deck? Oh,
They're loaded up, and Jessica can advance them for you.
awesome. Perfect. So we'll go ahead and we'll just go through what are community schools pretty quickly. So the first one that we want to talk about is that community schools really are an equity strategy. So this is a chance for us to really find inclusive ways to bring everyone into this. And when we say everyone, we mean everyone. Wall-to-wall staff, all of our students, our caregivers, our families, and our communities at large. Community schools are about sharing information and about sharing leadership. It's about a distributive model. So instead of a hierarchical triangle, it's about a shared and common distributive leadership model, which is more of a circular model. really looking at authentic engagement. So it's perfect for tonight's topic. How do we bring everyone to the table, and how do we hold that space once we bring people in? It's about repairing that trust if harm has been done, and about building long-lasting relationships. This is not a transactional model. It's making sure that it's true to the local identity. We talked about that with our students and with the examples that we just heard from our panel, and building those relationships. It always goes back to those relationships. So there on the screen is the model from the National Equity Project, really thinking about how we break down some of the systemic oppression that's built into the system, and how we stay below the line in order to build relationships, honor identity, share information, and also what that looks like in structures and patterns and processes, and how this all comes together in an equity model. Okay, so in our next couple of slides, in the next one, we'll talk a little bit more about community schools. So we know that it's Maslow's to get to Bloom. So if our kiddos are struggling with all of their basic needs, they are not going to be ready to learn. So community schools is more than just services, but also how do we make sure that our kids, our families, our staff, our community have what they need. And this is also not a Band-Aid. This is about a disruption. This is about changing the course so that folks have what they need to be their most successful selves. And on our next slide, we'll look at it in a little bit of a different way, thinking about this transformation. So this idea of not a Band-Aid, but a disruption, we're working towards transformation. And this does not happen overnight. This is going to take several years, and this is going to take all of us working together. So that's why this is a full team effort. We need to understand the system that we're operating within. We do this through mapping. We do this through needs and asset assessment. And then we bring everyone together to identify the priorities that will be disrupted. And we make the changes that we need to make so that everyone can benefit. And we do this with those that are closest to the work. And we make sure that everyone is a part of that change process. Go ahead and we'll go to the next slide, Jessica. We know that our students spend about 1,000 of their waking hours inside school, but most of their hours are still outside of school. And that's why through community schools, we are really trying to redefine our public schools as the hub of the community in a way in which we're transforming the whole thing. We'll hear a little bit of that from our panelists here coming to us from Hillsborough and what they've done in Gibsonton to do this exact thing, to transform, to become that hub. And they've done this by seeing the system. So you see the elephant there in the picture. And so if we're only looking at one elephant or one part of the elephant, we might think it's one thing or another. And as we make changes to one part of the system, we might actually end up mucking up another part. But what's really important is trying to see the whole system so that we can A, identify correctly what it is that we're trying to do, and B, as we start to make changes to one element, we can understand how that's affecting in ripples the other elements of the system and the other participants in the system as well. So we're understanding how we fit as schools in our community, and we're understanding how this functions in our system, and so that we can really take all of this into account as we're working towards transformation, and we're working towards those big goals that we have for students, for all staff, for our families and caregivers, and for our communities. And as we bring this piece to a close so that you can get on with hearing from Catherine and Sherry Ann on our next slide, we would just want to talk about transformation in one more way, where we talk about school level, district level, and city level. Again, all of this is working together. We are bringing all of these pieces together because we know that we need all of these mechanisms working for the long lasting and sustainable change that leads to transformation, that leads to true disruption of the priorities that folks are identifying as important to them. And on our next slide, the most important thing is about imagining what's possible. We've got to break outside of the box. We've got to really start to think about what is a collective and shared vision. And that is the gift of community schools. We do not have to do this as business as usual. We get to dream together, we get to create together, and we get to imagine together, and we get to break outside of the box. What is it that we need, and where is it that we want to go? And that is an amazing opportunity as we come together. And two incredible humans that have done this work are Sherry Ann Johnson, a school nurse from Gibsonton, and Catherine Gilmore, a community school resource teacher also at Gibsonton, who is functioning as community school coordinator in Hillsborough County Public Schools. And I'm really excited to welcome them into this space tonight.
All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Catherine Gilmore. I want to start by saying that I originally started my role in education as an education support person. I was a paraprofessional in a special education classroom before becoming a teacher. And then the opportunity to become a community school arose, and I took that lead and have been very fortunate to be able to build the relationships, to Kamel's point, to hear these stories and to make a change. For us at Gibsonton, it's those stories that have led us on a journey over the last 5 years as a community school that has really allowed us to disrupt what's happening at our school, to say that these unheard voices need to be the voices that lead the direction of our school. So we don't have children that are struggling to get an education because their dignity and their identity is held hostage by conditions that they have no control over. We want to ensure that they're coming to school. So we have to ask these questions of what barriers are getting in the way. And if we can find out those questions, the answers to these questions, we share that work across our staff. As the resource teacher or the coordinator at my school, I don't do all the work. And I'm super excited to present my friends, just somebody I truly look up to, which is Sherry Ann Johnson. She's our school nurse, and that's a huge role. But she's taken on so much more than just being a nurse at her school. I always tell her, like, she saved my life a couple years ago. She is super, super important to me. But she's important to our kids as well. So I'm going to pass it on to Sherry Ann. She is muted though.
Sherry Ann, can you please unmute from your end?
I'm trying to.
We got you.
Okay. Yeah. I have her on my phone because her internet's like really funny.
Okay.
Sherry Ann, if you want to talk through the phone, we can do it that way.
Okay, that'd probably be better. Hello, I'm Sherry Ann Johnson. I'm the school nurse at Gibsonton Elementary, and I appreciate you having me onto this panel. And I feel like a community school is a blessing. It's a blessing to the people that work there, and it's a blessing to the students and the families. I work really close with Catherine, and with her support, we are able to have children stay, the attendance levels have gone up with certain just little things as head lice. Head lice is a problem where it is not an excused absence. It's also something that is hard to get rid of. And in Hillsborough County, there's a no-nit policy. So if your child still comes to school and they have 2 or 3 nits in their hair, we have to send them home. And then this creates a big problem. It creates a bigger problem if you don't have the resources to buy the medication. It's very expensive. And you don't understand how to combat this problem. So that's where we work as a team. I'll identify, okay, this child has already missed 5 days of school, and they're not able to afford the lice treatment, and there's a breakdown to get it under control. So then Catherine will then provide resources. She will get us the medication, and we will have combs, and then the students and the parents will come to the school, and together we help them get rid of it, and the child is back in school. When I first started at Gibsonton 8 years ago, we would have kids that would miss school for sometimes 3 or 4 weeks with head lice. But then when we became a community school, we don't see this anymore. We don't see kids lasting for longer than a week being gone. And it's only because, they kind of, they didn't reach out or we didn't get to them in time. But I feel like if you have a community school and you're able to help the child stay healthier, you're able to educate the parents better, and you can provide basic necessities for them.
So it sounds like by being a community school, you've been able to deepen the relationships and the engagement that you have with parents, with staff, with students, with community. And I'm wondering, in the few minutes that we have left, can you share with us about the next steps that you want to take to continue to deepen your work? And what are your thoughts around how we can strengthen our relationships with family and with community?
So our first year that we became a community school, we asked parents if they had a relationship with our school. And 58% of them said that they had some kind of relationship. And through our work of reaching out and building those relationships, we got it up to 91% said that they felt they had a two-way communication experience, where if they had a need, they knew who to reach out to and their answer was going to be provided. And that comes from reaching out, asking questions and saying, how can we make us better? Because we're not experts by any means. And the system is always changing. One of the things that Angelina had said is like, when you disrupt one system, there's other ripple effects that happen. And our first year, we made huge changes to build relationships with our families. And then last year, we asked new questions, and the problems were different problems, but we still have new things to continue to work on. And it's because we're always striving to improve things. Sherry Ann is not just our school nurse. She helps in our pantry. She helps with clothing for kids. She gets really down to the meat and bones of who these people are and sees them for the struggles that they're trying to overcome and for their full potential. And almost every day that I walk past the nurse and the clinic, I see kids leaving her room like really happy, genuinely happy. Whereas when I saw them walk in, they were struggling. Sherry Ann, you want to add?
That's so sweet. I'm about to cry over here. That's so nice of you to say that. I feel like it's a matter of creating trust with them, and you're providing a safe place for them, a place without judgment. It's someone to look at you and say, you know something, okay, you don't have a jacket, let me get you the jacket. What else is going on? Do you need socks? Do you need underwear? You know, and if you can create the trust with them and just let them know that we're here to help you, they will come to you and they will feel comfortable. And I think that's what we have going at Gibsonton. And then the parents will feel comfortable with you. The children will go home and say, you know, I got this jacket from the nurse, and she says that they have a food pantry, and we can go there and get our food every Thursday. And then the parent might call me, and then come to find out the parent might need a GED class, and that's what's holding them back to getting a better job. So I feel like we, like you said, we've grown and we've come a lot throughout the years since we've become a community school.
Yeah, and every time we unearth something, we find a new path that helps not just one person, but we help so many more families. And since we became a community, yeah, and since we became a community school, we stopped focusing on just the families that are enrolled at our school, but we're able to help the families in the community. And if you've moved on from elementary, which is what we are, and you're now in middle and high school, those families are coming back. They're coming to our pantry. They're calling for resources because they know that we have that relationship after being together for anywhere between a couple of months to 7 years. And they know that we're their tribe. We have not left them. We're always wishing them great things.
Yes, I agree 100%.
Seems like it's really resonating with a lot of folks too, with the comments that are coming in the chat. Like there's a lot of things that are hitting with what folks have experienced or what they've also done at their sites, at their schools, and in their locations as well. And so, Jessica, I wanted to bring you back in to see if maybe there are some elements where we can connect everyone together tonight, and maybe bring some other questions or some other items back into this.
Thank you so much for passing it back over. I do not see at this time that any questions have been submitted in the Q&A feature, but we are officially transitioning into the Q&A portion of tonight's webinar. So if you have any questions, please be sure, if you put them in the chat, please be sure to repost them in the Q&A feature, because as you saw, that chat was on fire. And so it's hard to keep up with questions when we have comments and things coming in the chat. So we will give you a minute or two. I don't know if you had any follow-up questions, Dan or Angelia, for the panelists in the interim, but we may just give 1 minute to see if there are any questions that pop into the Q&A feature. And if not, then we can go ahead and close out thereafter.
Thanks, Jessica. Yeah, I'll throw a question out there. And this is really wonderful what's coming in. And I see Martin just posted donorschoose.org, really valuable resource. Check out what he put there for sure. Yeah, keep the great content and ideas coming in the chat. I want to pick up on one question while people think about what other questions they want to have there. But we've heard in a bunch of different ways, in really fascinating ways, how investing in relationships creates this kind of like positive cycle. The roots get deeper, and then people feel safer with you, and then more good things happen. But there was a really good question earlier to Kimel in the chat about when it came to helping the student get new clothes, were you scared? And Kimel wrote, no, I was happy to help. But I think it opens up the door to talk a little bit about what can get in the way. What can be the barriers to some of this great connection that we see? And in the, a limited time, just like a minute for folks who are inspired to share about this, what do you notice could get in the way for ESPs specifically? And how do you recommend thinking about it or going about it to try to overcome or work around that? In the case of that one question in the chat, the fear, but just any kind of barrier that could get in the way to building these relationships. And you can just unmute and jump in like a Quaker meeting here.
Sometimes it could be the student. The student could be the barrier. They don't want the help. They don't want you to do anything for them because they have their guards up. You also could have the family that is saying, we don't want your help right now. That could be a barrier. And it could even be the staff in the building that are saying, no, we don't do that here. And we don't want that to happen. And so it's like, now you have to find out where you can find a balance in that when you have all of these guards being put up in front of you. So yeah, I just think that it could be all three. It could be your people in your building. It could be the student. It could be the family putting up barriers to stop you from doing what you need to do to help. And it's now, what are you going to stand on with your voice? And say no, because you notice that the help is needed. So are you going to stand on that, or are you going to walk away? I'm going to stand on it, just so you all know.
I think with me at the community college, a lot of times what I encounter is just pride, because I deal with adults so much, that single mom or even that dad that he can't get to class because he doesn't have enough gas money to get to class 2 days a week. So a lot of times I think it's just pride in building that relationship to that point with them that they become comfortable enough to where they will let you in so that you can help.
I think for me at Gibsonton, one of the biggest problems is people don't realize that they can ask for help themselves. We have a lot of staff members that come to our food pantry. They come to our clothing closet. They'll ask me for support to find a home or to keep the home that they have. And sometimes they themselves are just unaware that there's help out there for themselves, for us here in this room. And so they don't know who to ask when they see somebody who's struggling, because they think like, go to the school counselor. But everybody on this call wants to see great things happen for their community. There are so many people in every single school that wants to see these problems, the systemic problems, get addressed. So we've just got to be very honest. Like, I don't have every skill out there, but I know people who will help. So if you're looking for lice kits, like Sherry Ann had said, if you're looking for your adult education, if your neighbor is looking for it, ask. Because and make sure that your school has a way in which people feel comfortable. We use social media, and they can DM me and say like, hey, Mrs. Gilmore, do you know where this or that is? And it's understanding that we'll never have the answers for everybody, but at least we're willing to help so that when somebody sees someone else getting help, they know that you are trustworthy and that you can be reached out to.
Yeah. For me, I guess the barrier for myself and probably others was kind of that assumption, and also that kind of a little bit of bias. Like, I recall we had we do our we do weekly distributions. We have a larger monthly distribution at a resource center in the drive-through, and we had someone pull up in a like brand new 2023, Tahoe, fully loaded, everything's probably $80,000-$90,000 vehicle, and they're here at a resource center, and you hear people in the background talking, kind of looking like, why is this person in a car more than I earn in a year in this line? And I mean, we knew, but the general public didn't know that this woman's husband just passed. He was the sole earner in the family. He was the sole provider in the family. He worked so that she could take care of the kids and be home and go to the school and be engaged. And now she was looking for different ways just to make ends meet and just to feed her kids. But people see this, vehicle that's paid off that she's not making any payments towards, thinking that, she's splurging, she's wasting money, she shouldn't be here, she's abusing the system. And so just trying to keep those assumptions and biases in check. And, you don't know the story until you know the story. And so it's always better to ask or find out than to assume.
Sure.
Go ahead.
I would say I've actually had some families where you can see that the student is in great need of clothing. And I've actually had a parent call up and be mad with me because I gave clothes out. And I will just have to basically, kind of downplay the situation, make it where it's not really a charity type thing. But, I kind of put it like, well, something, I have all these wonderful clothes here and I just don't know what to do with them. So I just, it's something I like to do. It's a fun thing. Your child comes in, I give them a bag, they kind of go shopping, and it's just a fun way for us to help our students. And it's not just your child, it's open for everybody. And when you put it kind of in that way, then they usually are I would say 90% of the time, they're more receptive to keeping the clothing and things that we offer. And even sometimes those same people have turned around and they start feeling comfortable. And I think like what the other man just said, getting rid of that stigmatism, oh, look, they need help. But they, on the outside, it may not look like they need help to everybody else, but you don't really know what's going on inside that personal family. So once they feel comfortable, then you'll see that they'll start accepting more, and then you can create that relationship.
Thank you, Sherry Ann. Yeah, I'm so glad everyone weighed in on that. In day-to-day work, everyone's very busy and wrapped up, but it is so important and special and inspiring to come together and say out loud and share these ideas, and how much good work is being done through such skill and expertise and dedication, and with ESPs leading, and with NEA supporting. It's very, very powerful stuff. So I hope for folks who have joined and for our panel, you feel really good and informed and fired up about the incredible connecting work that's happening, that each and every person here is a part of. And I'll hand it off to Jessica to close us out.
We are going to officially close out for tonight. And so on behalf of the Center for Professional Excellence in Student Learning's NEA ESP Quality Department, I'd like to once again thank our amazing panelists for joining us this evening, as well as our moderators. This has been an amazing and inspiring session. And I thank you all for participating. Please stay safe, stay healthy, and good night from the NEA ESP Quality Department.